The U20 Asian Cup is kicking off next week in China, and in this video, guys, I'm going to be giving y'all a comprehensive preview of everything happening in the tournament. First, I'm going to give you guys a little background, tell you why you should care, what's at stake at this U20 Asian Cup. Then I'm going to give you guys a couple storylines, a couple mini narratives that I think you should be paying attention to because I think they're fascinating. And then lastly, we will go group by group, and I will give you guys my professional opinion and prediction on how I see each one playing out. I will do my very best to make another video about the tournament after the group phase, previewing the knockouts. So if you do not want to miss that and all the other Asian football content here on Deadball TV, make sure you hit subscribe. I literally release hours of content every single international break about the AFC. The senior teams are back in action in March. We have World Cup qualification on the line. Things are getting epic. Make sure you stick around. Timestamps down below in the description of this video. Let's get started. So firstly, why should you pay attention to the U20 Asian Cup? What is at stake here? That would be a trip to the 2025 U20 World Cup. Now, the last U20 World Cup didn't go that well for Asia. South Korea pretty much put the continent on their back and made the semifinal. Japan really let me down. I had high expectations for that team, and it was kind of a disaster. Uzbekistan, iffy group stage, did make the knockouts and were very close to making the quarterfinals, but ultimately were unable to do so. And Iraq just kind of got slapped up. So I'm fully expecting Asia to do better at the 2025 edition than they did at the last one. So in a nutshell, that's why this tournament matters, because all of the teams participating have an eye on the U20 World Cup. And for some of these countries, they've never qualified to that tournament. Now, even if you don't think that Asian teams are going to perform well at the next World Cup, there are still plenty of other reasons to pay attention to this tournament. Namely, because you will be able to watch some of Asia's future superstars live in the flesh before all the FOTMOB merchants and everybody else gets a hold of them. And let's be honest, I know everybody likes discovering the next wonder kid before your friend. I'm going to go through a list of players who really made a name for themselves at the last U20 Asian Cup, and this is kind of staggering. Players like Ali Jassim for Iraq, now playing in the Eredivisie in Europe. Henri Chase, Japan and Frankfurt. Junhobe with South Korea, now playing at Stoke City. Kim Ji-soo, another South Korean player, center back, had a great tournament, now at Brentford. And of course, Abdulkadir Husanov. Maybe you've heard of him. He just made a $50 million transfer to Manchester City. So yeah, you might want to pay attention. In fact, while you're watching these games, why don't you take out a notepad and a pencil and just jot down some names? I know that's what I'm going to be doing. So that's why we should care. Let's get into some storylines. An obvious first storyline: can Uzbekistan defend their U20 Asian Cup title? In 2023, Uzbekistan both hosted and won the U20 Asian Cup, only allowing one goal the entire tournament, which is insane. And if you're a viewer with 4,000 ball IQ, you know the Uzbeks at youth football are nothing to be trifled with. In fact, I would make the argument that the two scariest teams at the youth level in Asia are Japan and Uzbekistan. Despite some of you maybe not being able to identify where Uzbekistan is on a map, they have made 4 of the last 7 semifinals at this tournament. If a senior team was able to replicate that type of performance in CONMEBOL or at the actual Senior Asian Cup, we would call that dominance. But it's really a stat that just kind of goes under the radar, much like the rest of Uzbek football. In fact, only South Korea has made more semifinals in the last 7 editions than Uzbekistan. They made it 5 times. South Korea's last championship, though, was in 2012. So again, pretty beast mode from the Uzbeks. Now, let me know in the comments, are Uzbekistan favorites once again? I'm going to say hands down they're a top 3 favorite. Now, this is going to be a Herculean task for the White Wolves because no team has repeated as U20 Asian Cup champions since South Korea in 2002 and 2004. That was a long time ago. Next storyline to watch, and another obvious one: which Asian teams make the U20 FIFA World Cup in Chile? Another recap: last time we saw South Korea, Uzbekistan, Japan, and Iraq. Now, how do you qualify for the FIFA U20 World Cup? Well, you have to finish as a semi-finalist in the Asian Cup. So those quarterfinal matches are gonna be heated, bro, and I can't wait. Maybe a better storyline is which one of those teams don't make it this time. Now, every time I cover storylines like this, I inevitably anger and piss off whichever fan base that I pick their team team to fail. And I'm going to be honest here, I'm kind of thinking it's Iraq. While I like the Iraqi senior team, I was looking at the youth team's performance, especially at the last U17 Asian Cup and their U20 Asian Cup qualification, and nothing really stood out to me. There's not really any big wins or good results there. Now, I'm not saying they're guaranteed to get grouped in this tournament, but I'm feeling the least confident about the Iraqis. And should Iraq fall out of the top 4, who takes their place? So something I realized after filming is based on how the bracket looks, we are guaranteed with 100% certainty to get either a Uzbekistan-Japan game or an Uzbekistan-South Korea game in the quarterfinals, which means one of those 3 teams is certifiably not making it to the U20 World Cup. So we are definitely looking at a situation here where maybe 2, dare I say even 3 of the representatives at the last edition don't make it this time. This is absolutely insane. I mean, this is why draws and pots are important because, wow, some giant is going home in the quarterfinals. And I'm probably going to get clowned for my prediction of who steps up, but I'm kind of feeling Saudi Arabia. And I'm a little stunned that I'm saying that, but I'm going to stick to my guns. We'll get to the groups in a second, but their group is pretty wide open. I don't feel like any team in there is invincible, and I could see the Saudis topping it. Once they do that, it's going to be a really tough knockout game unless they win the group. So yeah, I'm not guaranteeing the Saudis make the next FIFA U20 World Cup, but I like their chances. I'll get into some other teams later. Last mini storyline for y'all before we get into the group predictions. Dark horse candidates for the U20 Asian Cup. And I'm taking North Korea. These guys finished top of their qualification group and did not allow a single goal. Not only that, they did it as a pot 5. Let me say that again. They were the last pot in the qualification draw, and they won the group. Like, put some respect on North Korean football, man. I'm so sick of this. Somebody else let me know a time in history when a pot 5 team won their group, ran the group, finishing undefeated and not allowing a single goal. Like, this might be one of the greatest achievements in football history that nobody knows about. They try to group my boys with the likes of Guam, Nepal, and the Northern Mariana Islands. The disrespect is insane. It's disgusting, quite frankly. Do you know what North Korea did to the pot 1 in their group? It was Tajikistan. Gave them a quick 2-piece, sent them down to the shadow realm. Homies finished 3rd. Nah, I'm so done. I could not be more bullish on North Korea. Y'all better watch out. I think in order to be a strong dark horse candidate, you need a good defense. And I can't believe I'm saying this part, but the North Koreans, who we typically associate with firepower, no pun intended, seem to be quite adept at that front. I kind of low-key like Qatar as well, but that's going to depend on what happens in the group. Do you guys have a different dark horse candidate? You can tell that I'm pretty bullish on mine. Let me know in the comments. Now that we've gotten all that stuff out of the way, let's get into the group by group predictions. And of course, we'll start with Group A. China, Australia, Kyrgyzstan, and Qatar. I'll say it from the jump, I feel like this is the group of life. I don't think Australian fans will like to hear this, but I think China, Australia, and Qatar have an even chance of progressing here. China, as a senior national team, is kind of being bantered right now, despite their, 2 recent wins in World Cup qualification, but I kind of like their youth team, man. Same with Qatar. I feel like this generation has some talent. Speaking on China for a sec, I was looking at the last time that a host of the U20 Asian Cup was grouped, and that was the UAE in 2012. So the home XP buff is very real. The game for me to watch in this group is China versus Qatar. I think whoever takes 3 points from that group advances. And yes, I will be watching that match. Gosh, everything's so tight in this group. I mean, China drew Uzbekistan 2-2 recently in a friendly. In the last edition of the U20 Asian Cup, they did advance from the group narrowly by getting a draw against Kyrgyzstan, ironically, on the final match day. Man, there's a lot that could happen here. Australia is an interesting one because if I look at how their team's been performing, they rarely lose, but they also don't win that many games, at least against good national teams. Here's my thesis on Australian football, right? I feel like at the youth levels, right, before you become the senior team, they're still bigger, faster, stronger than everybody else to the point where they can kind of use that as their trap card, especially against the smaller Asian teams. And I do feel like a Kyrgyzstan and Qatar, it's not a great matchup. I don't think the Socceroos are going to come out here playing high-flying football and just, tiki-taking on everybody in the group, but I could see them scraping by some ugly 1-0, 2-1 wins. And like I said earlier, Qatar, they are, in my opinion, a dark horse candidate as well. They are coming off back-to-back wins against Uzbekistan and Thailand. They have 0 losses in the last 5 games. I'm just saying, man, I wouldn't be surprised. lost. And then we have Kyrgyzstan, who I do think will finish in 4th place. They're kind of the only team here that I don't think has a chance. Insane fun fact for y'all, Kyrgyzstan has never won a game at the U20 Asian Cup, ever. Isn't that wild? To be fair, this is only their 3rd tournament, but 0 wins in 6, not giving me a lot of confidence. I'm going to say China and Australia advance, but I'm going to give Australia a 55% likelihood and Qatar 45%. That's how close I think it is. China, as the host, I'm going to stick to that pick. Let's go ahead and take it on to Group B, where we have Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and North Korea. RIP to any predictions I'm about to make. Obviously, this group has my Cinderella pick, North Korea. I am picking them to advance from this group. The ones to watch that I know very little about are the Jordanian and Iraqi youth teams. Iraq were very, very strong in the last edition of the U20 Cup, but mainly because Ali Jassim was a monster, and he is not going to be released for obvious reasons to participate in this tournament. And at least personally, I don't know another Iraqi prospect who's going to be able to step in and replicate that production. What I do know is looking at all of Iraq's U20 results from 2024, there's not really any good wins, nothing that impressed me at all except maybe a win against Oman at the WAFF. Coming in here on 3 losses in the last 5 games, I don't think it's looking good. I think the Saudi and North Korea matches are going to be very tough, and they even lost to Jordan at the WAF as well. And then Jordan, complete wild card to me. I tried looking at the call-up for this list. I didn't recognize any of the players. I think they have a shot to advance. I think everybody's got a shot to advance in this group. Similar to Group A, I think it's wide open. But I'm going to pick the Saudis and the North Koreans to advance. I think the Saudis just go so hard at the U20 level. Similar to my thesis on Australian football, I do have a thesis about the Saudis that even though their talent is not translating to the senior team, namely because of their league, not being set up for that, but that's a topic for a different video. I still think from a technical standpoint, their youth players are very strong. And they kind of got that dark arts, super annoying aspect to their game as well that really frustrates the opposition. I think it's like the Bahrain senior team and like the Saudi youth teams who've got to be some of the most annoying opponents in all of world football. Every time I got to watch this Saudi youth team, they're just rolling around on the ground. But guess what? When they're actually playing football, they're quite good. And yeah, North Korea, I just think nobody wants that smoke. I think everybody's going to be unprepared. I think everybody's going to say, oh, look at them. Like they're barely even do they even have internet in their country? We don't know. So maybe some hot takes for my Group B predictions here. Moving on to Group C, we have Uzbekistan, Iran, Indonesia, and Yemen. Who's ready for Iran, Uzbekistan round 55? I know I am. Okay, now at the risk of sounding insulting, I think this is the most straightforward group. I think Uzbekistan take this with either 7 or 9 points. And the Uzbeks are bringing some pretty good players. They were one of the teams that released their squad call-up probably a week ago, so I was able to look into some of the players, including Azizbek Turkinbekov. Is he Husanov 2.0? I'm not entirely sure, but he was listed in the Guardian's top 100 footballers born in 2007, which being born in 2007, man, that's just insane. Saidov is another player to watch for Uzbekistan. He scored 4 goals in the U17 Asian Cup where Uzbekistan reached the final. And I'm sure there's like 5 other players on this team that I just don't know about who are pure class. Because that's, again, just Uzbek football. These guys move in the shadow of the mountains. Or maybe under the shade of the Great Plains. I don't know how mountainous Uzbekistan is. Also, shadow of the Great Plain doesn't make any sense. Anyways, if Iran get knocked out by Indonesia here, I think we just got to place all of the youth teams on fraud alert. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, right? Indonesia's probably one of the other U20 teams that I know almost nothing about, except for the fact they beat Argentina in a friendly. But outside of beating Argentina, they've pretty much lost to everybody else. So again, I'm not really sure how to read into that. I don't really have a lot of faith in the Indonesian youth teams, especially after the AFF. I think a lot of their homegrown talent is still quite limited. And I just think physically they're going to be totally outmatched by the Iranians and the Uzbeks. Now, Yemen is an interesting one here. In the history of this tournament, Yemen have only advanced from the group stage once, and that was in 1975. So not really a dark horse that I'm going to bet real money on. That being said, though, at the last Asian Youth Tournament, the U17s, they did make the knockouts, and they lost to Iran, ironically, on penalties. I'm not sure how many of those U17 players from both teams are going to come over for this U20 Asian Cup, but this could be a revenge match. This could be one of those banana peels for Iran to slip on. I do think Uzbekistan are going to advance from this group, and I think Iran are probably going to join them. Indonesia, I don't really think they have much of a chance here, and if I have to pick kind of a sleeper team, it would be the Yemenis. Last group here, Group D, you might want to buckle up. We got Japan, South Korea, Syria, and Thailand. I mean, come on, y'all. What more could you want in a group? South Korea versus Japan, we will be there. Just as a fan of Asian football, this group goes so hard. We'll start with Thailand. I was looking at some of the results, and they did beat Australia in the recent ASEAN Championship, so I wouldn't sleep on those guys. Japan as a U20 side have looked okay recently. They do play a lot of very good European and South American teams, you know, and they typically split the series with those guys. I have an insane stat here. Japan have not been grouped at the U20 Asian Cup since 1990. That was 16 tournaments ago. I would need to see the last time South Korea got grouped, but I feel like that's probably the longest in the competition's history. And the Samurai Blue are bringing a couple players to this U20 Cup that absolutely ran the U17 Asian Cup. The star player to watch for Japan is probably Rento Takaoka, a guy who scored 4 goals at the U17 World Cup for Japan. I think he scored every single Japan goal except for one, and that one goal was scored by another player who's going to be joining the Japanese camp, Gaku Nuwata, another player to watch. Yuta Michiwaki, very talented players, very good performance at the U17 Asian Cup for Japan. Now, maybe the number one thing to watch in this group is Syria, because this team is tough as nails. And honestly, I probably should have had them as a sleeper pick and would have had them as a sleeper pick over Qatar were they not to draw Japan and South Korea. But these guys are good, man. Go and take some time, look at some of their recent results. There's just a lot of question marks with Syria, right? Like, I genuinely do not know how much the regime change and all that kind of governmental stuff is going to rub off on the team. In Group A of the U20 Asian Cup qualification, they went 4 for 4, scoring 16 times and allowing a single goal. Now, the caveat here is their group was pretty terrible, with really Vietnam being the only team of note, and they beat Vietnam via an own goal late in the game. So Syria, again, not one of those teams I'm going to be betting like 10 grand on to go ahead and make the semifinals, but I could see them getting a surprise draw against one of these teams. Even Thailand's a bit funky. Like, I see them getting points here, but in the end, I think they go home. I think the pedigree and the football heritage of Japan and South Korea is going to be too much for the rest of these guys, and Syria and Thailand will end up going home. Maybe the most mental part of Group D is that somebody could win their group and have to play Japan or South Korea in the quarterfinals. Like, come on, bro. Like, sometimes life just isn't fair. I need to look at the bracket on who that would be. Good lord, I just looked at the bracket and that would be a team from Group C, which means we could get Uzbekistan versus Japan in the quarterfinals. Good lord. Oh, I'm sweating. That might be the potential final happening in the quarters. That's ridiculous. Wow, Group B and Group A teams really got blessed here. I feel even better about my North Korea sleeper pick now, because they don't have to play Japan or South Korea or Uzbekistan or Iran until the semis. Oh yeah, this draw is pretty unbalanced. That's the video, guys. That is my comprehensive breakdown of the U20 Asian Cup coming up. I will try to do another video before the knockouts, and then of course I'll do a recap video after the fact. Maybe I can even do a live stream. It depends on how I can find the games in Argentina, because they're just not readily available for obvious reasons. Nobody in Buenos Aires is watching the U20 Asian Cup except for me. So if you guys can figure out a way for me to do that, if you want to hit me up on Twitter, link in the description, let me know how I can find these games, and maybe I do a live stream. I would love to do so. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop it a like. Again, hit subscribe for future AFC videos here on Deadball TV, and I'll see you guys in the next one.